Dario Argento's giallo films are fascinating on many levels, but they seem to still have relevance today because of the rich way they explore a changing world. There was something of a threat to the social order in The Bird with the Crystal Plumage, as I discussed in the previous podcast, but it was as if Argento was unwilling to jump all the way into the chaos of uncertainty. Despite the world being threatened by murderers and gender trouble, a certain safety is found at the film's conclusion. Our probably progressive heroes ultimately realize they love each other and they live happily ever after. In this podcast, I'll discuss Argento's next two films, also both gialli, in which Argento lays the groundwork for the utter chaos of Deep Red and Suspiria. Questionable, and now debunked, science is employed in both The Cat o' Nine Tails and Four Flies on Grey Velvet, which is once again reflective of Argento's willingness to engage with New Age ideas. But on both occasions, social order is threatened and not exactly put back together. I am the Italian Horror Guy, and this is the Italian Horror Guy podcast. The Cat o' Nine Tails. Argento really emphasizes the obsession with mystery and investigation in The Cat o' Nine Tails. According to Maitland McDonough, the giallo film is similar to the film noir, especially in the work of Argento. She explains that the world of Dario Argento is one of twisted logic, rhapsodic violence, stylized excess. Indeed, Cat o' Nine Tails contains many shots of dark and empty metropolitan streets and many scenes in which characters investigate mysteries at night, factors which are highly reminiscent of the subject matter and visual style of film noir. In opposition to the supposedly progressive nature of the giallo, Cat establishes progress as a threat to the social order. Whilst this film contains more open-minded ideas than the often cynical attitudes present in the classic film noir, the often similar style evokes a sense that Argento enjoyed what once was in cinema. Cat starts with a very flute-heavy, ponderous Morricone score before the first images of the film reveal some Eastern European-type architecture under a calm evening sky. Everything is very square and parallel. The camera settles on a relatively dark street with a parked car near the back of the scene. Two small figures are walking on the street, too hard for us to properly make out. In these calm corners of the world, something nefarious is brewing. This is the influence of the film noir. We're then introduced to two of our protagonists, Franco Cookie-Arno and his niece Laurie, a peculiar pairing for a giallo film. Franco is dressed in very crisp-looking black suit, sports a walking cane, a detective-esque hat, and dark glasses. He is blind after all. Laurie asks questions of Franco, who is encouraging her to learn before they walk past a car. Franco asks Laurie to stop while he ties his shoelaces so Laurie can see who is in the car. Franco heard something strange as they walked past. As Laurie describes the man, a fact becomes abundantly clear about Argento's films. They have a formula. This is only his second giallo film, but a pattern has already emerged. We are given information about something dangerous, but not sufficient information to piece together a puzzle that will soon emerge and requires solving. But this film is more brazen about this fact. After Franco sends Laurie to bed, he sits down to do a large crossword puzzle and hears a car speeding away nearby. Later, he even uses the phrase, "I like solving puzzles." And what a puzzle indeed. After a guard is killed outside the Terzi Medical Institute, a lengthy scene ensues in which An unidentified assailant wanders through the building and eyes a drawer that says genetics on it. We already know quite a lot without knowing much at all. The dynamic between two of our heroes has already been established. Franco and Laurie are not a traditional family unit, but their home is cozy and warm. They respect and love each other. We know this is a dynamic we approve of. It feels pleasant and natural. Quite poignantly, the threat seems aligned with something less pleasant: the study of how genetics determine who will become murderers. One could be forgiven for assuming that Argento's films are designed for the purpose of exploring new ideas and progressive concepts. But as discussed in the previous podcast, his films often depict new things cautiously, even dangerously. This film uses, let's say, fairly questionable science as the foundation of a murder mystery, but merely including this in his film does not seem like approval. Indeed, everyone at the Institute seems to be secretive, and any one of them might be the killer. They are researching something terrifying and dangerous. They are the direct opposite of what we already know and like, Franco and Laurie. As Ian Malcolm said in Jurassic Park, what's so great about discovery? It's a violent, penetrative act that scars what it explores. Argento is open to creative and new ideas, but this does not necessarily mean he approves of them. If the classic film noir was about crime, Cat might be described as depicting a world trying to understand and to assess crime. Dr. Cossoni explains that his research revolves around the idea that people with XY chromosomes have a tendency towards violence and aggression. Eliminating most crimes of violence would seem to be simply a matter of examining all children at birth and isolating all those with the XYY triad. There seems to be nothing our progressive landscape currently loves more than mocking the ignorance and stupidity of those that came before us, especially on matters of science. So it is worth pointing out the specifics of the nonsense science Argento chose are not important here. What matters is why this approach was chosen at all. By the 1970s, the time of the monster classic was over. Good and evil were more ambiguous. Film was evolving aggressively towards the anti-hero. Nuance now existed at the extremes of right and wrong. Argento engages with this idea but seems not to commit to it. The XYY chromosome element of the film seems to have been chosen precisely because of the nonsense science behind it. That evil could be explained by science, it seems, does injustice to evil. Cassoni, the killer, is shown in a lengthy sequence at the end of the film. It turns out he had the XYY chromosome. After attacking and kidnapping Laurie, he finds himself on the run from the police and Giordani. But Cookie, previously we mentioned him as Franco, catches him. Cassoni explains, after all these years of research, I would have been ruined. He then says he killed Laurie. An innocent child. You could kill an innocent child, replies Cookie. The anguish on his face tells us a lot here. His initial aggression and willingness to kill Cassoni is briefly minimized by the devastating, albeit untrue, news. The audience is meant to feel this, and we do. We are pleased to see him thrown to his death, Cassoni that is. But this is the key. No amount of science is meant to minimize evil in this film. Just the film noir, some evil, or just like the film noir, some evil is just evil. We have met Cassoni a number of times throughout the film. We know him as a person, not a possessed psychopath, merely a normal psychopath. If anything, this feels more like a critique of the concept of scientifically explaining evil than an agreement with this concept. It turns out there is no mystery here, not really. The science is nonsense. The most probable suspect is the killer, and the good is restored over evil. Cookie, cries out Laurie. the strange family unit will be restored. But the eyes have seen too much. Argento seems to be enamored with restoring order, but he is also interested in beauty, distraction, and vision. We see this both in the very fact that Giordani is a journalist, as well as his fascination with Anna. Giordani seems dedicated to investigation, but he seems unable to stay out of his own way. When he first enters the institute, the air of secrecy from those in charge puts us immediately on his side. After all, how else will we uncover the mystery? But he is understandably distracted by the glamorous Anna Tetzi, ostensible daughter of the institute director. As Giordani gains information about the murder, he becomes distracted by the high-heeled, long, white-dressed Anna. Indeed, all the men in the area stop their conversations to ogle her. This marks a significant shift for Argento, woman as object of desire. The casual observer has often criticized Argento's films for being anti-woman due to the violent nature of their deaths, but this scene reveals something more nuanced. The women in Argento's films, and maybe the Giallo films more generally, drive the men mad. In the very next scene, Anna's father is conducting a meeting with all the top brass of the institute regarding the murder. All the men in the room stand up and smile when Anna comes in. She turns out, though, to be no more than a distraction. The very next scene sums up Argento to perfection. Institute director Calabresi waits at a train station. Nearby is Giordani's photographer friend, awaiting the arrival of some unspecified beautiful woman. We then see a point of view shot from behind a pillar. The camera moves from Calabresi to a train and back to Calabresi. Calabresi approaches to shake the hand of the person. He is then pushed under the train. The photographer snaps a picture. Calabresi is run over. A crowd rushes in. The photographer pushes out of the crowd saying, "Hey, we've forgotten about the starlet." He and his team find her exiting the train, and the photographers do their thing. So what's going on here? The introduction to Giordani has revealed an inquisitive protagonist who is good-looking, capable, and a great source of information. But he has been distracted by a beautiful woman. In this scene, the film is showing us what we came to see, murder and mayhem. But it once again distracts us with a pretty woman. This perhaps reveals part of Argento's developing filmic philosophy at the time. We cannot always trust what meets the eye. In Bird, both Sam Dalmas and the audience literally see who the killer is at the start of the film. We just simply fail to realize. Our preconceptions blind us to reality. In Deep Red, a film to be discussed in a later podcast, the protagonist again cannot trust what he sees. Again, because he could not suspect a woman. And any wonder when women keep distracting Argento's protagonists. After the train scene, Cookie is drawing an impressive picture, using seemingly only his hands as a guide. In basically every scene he appears, Cookie's blindness is strongly emphasized, not least by Carl Malden's tremendous performance. Laurie reveals to Cookie that Calabresi has been killed, saying there is a picture of him falling under the train. Cookie smells a rat, though. He visits Giordani, who wrote the article, to ask about the picture. As he had rightly speculated, there is an arm in the picture, revealing that Calabresi was pushed. The photographer had missed this detail. After all, he was distracted by the starlet. Indeed, it was as though the film itself was distracted from these details. The train scene is chaotic and confusing to the point that we do not even know what the film wants us to focus on. It is something of a sensory overload. Cookie, however, has no sight to distract him. He likes solving puzzles, and he is good at it. Sight in the Argento film is misleading at best and deadly at worst. The photographer is immediately strangled to death after this scene. The camera focuses heavily on his wide open eyes. He has seen too much. Giordani narrowly escapes this fate himself a number of times, and usually only just. His strange and ill defined relationship with Anna proves dangerous, but not deadly. She is simply femme, as it turns out, not fatale. Anna arrives at Giordani's house. "Hello," she says, standing at the door. Giordani and Anna soon find themselves in the midst of a strained conversation as the sexual tension builds. Giordani soon quips, "Do you know how many people are together right now, making love at this very second?" The two exchange some more suggestive remarks and are soon engaged in coitus. The scene is accompanied by Morricone's soothing, melodic tones. Anna seems slightly nervous, even distant, but still a more than willing participant. It is a tender scene. This is not the image that comes to mind when one thinks about the Giallo film. It is respectful, but oddly placed. Whilst not the traditional depiction of female nudity and sexuality in the Giallo, we can still learn a lot from this scene in relation to the genre. Women hold a more complicated position in the Argento world than is often believed. They are not there merely to look nice and get slaughtered. They are a constant roadblock for male protagonists in his films. The killer in both The Bird with the Crystal Plumage and Deep Red are women. And in both cases, the revelation shatters the outlook of the male protagonists. In Cat, Giordani is self-assured, confident, and even highly competent. But he seems unable to shake the effect Anna has on him. His life is in jeopardy, but he cannot help himself. After their reactions conclude, Giordani pours he and his new lover some milk from poison containers. The audience know they are poisoned. We have seen milk drip onto the table, and white spilled. Let's do that again. We have seen milk drip onto the table. The white spilled. I see. My apologies. We have seen milk drip onto the table. The spilled white liquid seemingly a perfect visual representation of the scene. Giordani is simply too distracted by Anna to notice the danger, but he does survive. In a later scene, Giordani approaches Anna to accuse her of murder. "That glass of milk was in your hand 1 full minute before I knocked it away, but you didn't even take a sip." Giordani has also discovered Anna and director Terzi are not related and in something of a relationship themselves. He is hurt, but Anna dresses him down. "You started putting two and two together right after you found out about me and Terzi, didn't you? You petty, narrow-minded little reporter. You figured it all out, didn't you? A neat little equation, Italian style. Whore equals liar equals murderer. I thought I'd finally run into someone reasonably civilized, but I was wrong." This is of central importance to the Argento Giallo. The men are not civilized. They can't quite figure women out. Giordani is almost entirely reasonable in every action he takes in this film, and yet he misses the mark with Anna entirely. She frazzles his brain. This is not Anna's fault, but Giordani's. Just like it was not Julia's fault Sam did not appreciate her until the end of their tale. Giordani survives, in part, by leaving Anna behind. He loves women, but he cannot work them out. A constant Argento film, or should I say, theme. Our next protagonist, in Four Flies on Grey Velvet, loves women too. So, Four Flies on Grey Velvet continues with some familiar Argento tropes. Like Sam Damos before him, Roberto is an artist, but this time is actually quite deserving of punishment. Sam was distracted by irrelevant pursuits at the expense of his lovely partner. Roberto loves his band and cares nothing for his murderous wife. The very opening credits make this abundantly clear, as we see many different close ups of drums being played, interspersed with repeated images of an exposed beating heart. Additionally, a detective type seems to be spying on Roberto. Significantly, the entire sequence, despite telling us a lot about Roberto's character, completely ignores the existence of his wife, Nina. She is irrelevant. As this opening sequence draws to a close, Roberto crushes an annoying mosquito. This is his experience right through the film. People and situations repeatedly invite themselves into his world, and he attempts to remove them. Roberto is an artist, is under constant threat, and is a bit of a jerk. But importantly, the film revolves around him, not Nina. Soon after the credits, Roberto notices the detective following him once again. Son of a bitch, he says, and follows the man into a theatre. Roberto accuses the man of following him. A scuffle ensues. An unidentified person in a terrifying, gender neutral, smiling mask photographs the incident. The detective falls through the stage. Roberto notices the photographer. The detective is apparently dead. This is classic Argento. Uncertainty, violence, death, or so we think, and a protagonist in a completely unfair and unprovoked pickle. That the incident unfolds literally on a stage should orient us to its performative nature, if we understand Argento's tricks by now. If not, we are learning. As is always the case with these early Argento gialli, the Morricone score sets the tone. In this case, it is somber and creepy. After the scene, some generic shots of Roberto's neighborhood are accompanied by Morricone's orchestral, slow, droning tones. This is a sad setup atmosphere, perhaps slightly at odds with what we already know about Roberto. We are not yet aware, but the music actually tells us about Nina and her slightly insane, very depressed nature. This is what Argento does. He gives us all the information. He simply jumbles it up, though. As the score pushes into its more vibrant section, a cat in Roberto's house puts its head down to go to sleep in that inimitable cat way. We eventually zoom into Roberto's room, where he is next to Nina. We have finally met her. The music is telling us home is safety. Argento is misleading us again. In the following days, Roberto finds himself nearly killed in his own home. The strange mask appears again, and he is nearly strangled by a thick cord. You can't ask anyone. You're all alone, says the typical loud whisper voice of the Argento giallo. Roberto is a protagonist more in the victim category than previous Argento characters. There is at least the sense with Sam Dalmas or even Cookie and Giordani in Cat that they are enjoying the investigation. But Roberto is being tormented. A concerned looking Nina asks if Roberto is okay, but he is impatient. I said it was nothing. Of course, Nina knows it was not nothing. She was the one who almost strangled him after all. In her mind, Roberto not even sharing a near-death experience likely represents Roberto's indifference to her, and she is right. This is indeed a very somber film. Nina pleads with Roberto. Please, you can tell me. She's speaking slowly and almost in tears. Eventually, Roberto relents and explains the detective's situation. What are we going to do? I can't go to the police. I can't tell anyone. But Four Flies is not an entirely somber affair. In a suddenly much brighter setting, Roberto asks a suited man where God is. The man responds, God is here, he's there, and he's everywhere, and he's fishing down by the river. God is Roberto's friend Godfrey. Roberto finds his friend, indeed, fishing by the river, wearing a crown of flowers. God! He yells out, before we hear a nice little hallelujah, hallelujah song. Godfrey also owns a bird named Jerkoff. This is a strange change up from the rest of the film, and Argento in general. He does funny, but not usually comic relief characters quite so on the nose as this. Later, Roberto meets Godfrey and his wisecracking friend at a coffin sale, in which a salesman mentions he has never had a customer complain about his purchase. So what exactly is Argento doing here? Is he undermining the seriousness of this film? Well, I would offer a counter argument to this idea. Yes, Argento deals with serious subject matter, but certainly in the time and place these films were made, this was not exactly considered high art and absolutely not considered an appropriate way to explore the greater questions of life. By breaking away from the somber nature of this film from time to time, it serves to reorient us towards the seriousness and importance of the subject matter by contrasting it with the less serious. The film uses the same technique, although in the opposite order, with the character of Arosio, the flamboyant detective. He is initially presented in a fairly unserious way, but Argento manages to manipulate the audience into genuinely caring about him. Roberto arrives at Arosio's house and is immediately unimpressed. He takes one look at Arosio and assumes he has made a mistake. Arosio responds, "And you're thinking this fairy is going to jump on a chair and scream bloody murder if he sees a mouse." Arosio manages to charm Roberto, but he soon gets on our nerves too, as he allows Roberto to pay for an expensive lunch and then reveals he has never solved a single one of his 84 cases. Statistically speaking, one of the most impressive records of failure is destined to be broken. It's hard not to like him, very hard. He says, "Oh, haha," when Roberto reveals Nina was left a large inheritance. This makes him yet more likable and helps to develop this budding little relationship with Roberto, whatever it is. But it also serves to emphasize the distance we all are from Nina. That is, both the audience and the characters in this film. She seems to exist completely passively. This is a lesson Argento insists on teaching us. Monica Ranieri in Bird and Marta in Deep Red are both treated as passive and unthreatening. This seems to be more significant than mere twist fodder for the end of the film, though. The revelations are not designed simply to surprise us, but to reimagine the world we're looking at. Does Arosio represent yet another, in want of a less tired and overused word, problematic depiction of homosexuality in the Argento giallo? Probably. But social standards and norms were different in the early 1970s, and Argento was grappling with the shift. The women who have been pacified in these films inevitably present the most danger. In the case of Arosio, the slightly mocking tone is replaced by a genuine, heartfelt characterization. Perhaps Argento is grappling with social changes clumsily, but he is grappling with them nonetheless. By contrast, Roberto is increasingly unlikable. Nina leaves him with her attractive cousin Diane, whom he duly sleeps with, and seems to become increasingly fond of. He shows no remorse. Indeed, Roberto is entirely indifferent to his betrayal of Nina. This section of the film runs parallel to Arosio's investigations, which serve to, put him further up in our estimations further still. Arosio follows someone on a train, then into a toilet. The intense and brave expression in his eyes let us know he has spotted the killer. He is beautifully portrayed by Jean-Pierre Mariel. We want him to succeed. He enters a bathroom with both the male and female symbols on the door. Perhaps Argento really is a raging progressive, and is dispatched painfully. A blow to the head and a needle to the heart. Congratulations, you guessed right. Arosio attempts to stand, but he is dying. I was right, he says to himself with a satisfied smile. This is the kind of feeling Argento could create. The character appears at the center of this film, or in the center of this film, and spans no more than 25 minutes of runtime. He is mocked, depicted to be a freeloader and a failure, and yet we are devastated by his death. It is no accident that we dislike Roberto. Like in Cat, Bird, and Deep Red, Argento depicted his investigator character as likable. Roberto is different, though. He is negative, rude, and perhaps most condemningly, not a good investigator. When the final sequence unfolds, Roberto is still none the wiser. He sits at home by himself, awaiting the murderer. Eventually, Nina arrives. For a second, I thought, begins Roberto. But of course, he is too self involved to pinpoint Nina even at this stage. Nonetheless, the revelation happens. Nina's fly pendant, the image Diane saw as she died, falls from Nina's shirt. I'm a goddamn fool. I sure didn't have to look far, did I? Yes, Roberto is a fool. He's also quite redundant. I acknowledge that whilst the revelation is satisfying, the explanation initially feels quite redundant. This is because the dots were simply not there for the audience to connect. We hear flashbacks throughout the film of a father calling an unspecified child weak. The revelation reveals that Nina's father wanted her to be a boy. The strange mask, the gender-neutral bathroom, and even Nina's androgynous appearance, both in terms of hairstyle and clothing, fit most of the puzzle together. But Nina's justification that Roberto is so much like her father now becomes quite difficult to interpret. To this moment, we do not associate the domineering and cruel voice from the flashback with Roberto at all. After all, he's not exactly evil. That Godfrey comes to save Roberto could be read as something of an intervention from God. We might say that anyway. But this serves to emphasize just what a passive character Roberto is, as it turns out. Nina leaves, and an injured Roberto tells Godfrey that she's crazy. Roberto ends the film confused. The film's explosive ending means we remember Nina's death above all else. The man has now been pacified. The revelation method is a wonderful idea, if not slightly ridiculous, namely that the last image a dead person sees gets captured for others to see. Like in Cat, Argento is playing with some questionable science. But I think there is something a little more interesting going on here than mere silly mystery tactics. This is Argento moving towards the fantastical. When one thinks of these early Argento gialli, procedure, calmness, and Morricone's scores all come to mind. But he was interested in the fantastical as well. Deep Red is something of a bridge between these early films and Suspiria. The former leans into the mythology. I'll do that again. The former leans into the mythology of the haunted house film, but is still very much a giallo, while the latter dives directly into the fantastical. He takes the notion of the world being turned on its head closer in this final giallo in his Annibal trilogy, and sets this scene perfectly for his next giallo. Argento was emerging with Four Flies on Grey Velvet, but with Deep Red, he was fully realized. We'll bring you a podcast about Deep Red next month. I'm the Italian Horror Guy, and this has been the Italian Horror Guy podcast.